Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make techno in the style of KAS. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. We're going to be making kind of like their deeper style in the style of tracks like Road to Nowhere, Hell on Earth, and Raving Alone. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and everything you just heard in the intro in the description for just $5. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. So, the first thing we have going on here is this first pad, which sounds like this. So this is just the drone. It's just playing this little thing here, which is just F and C. We're in F minor, so this is playing just the root note. And then the fifth. Pretty simple. This is meant to kind of just drone over the other pads. If I play these together, you can hear. It's just adding like some musical context, and you can hear also. When the other pads go down to that next chord there, it kind of like just helps to add something more interesting on top of that as well, because this is staying in the same place. Well, that's moving. For the sound on this one, it's me using operators. This is a pretty simple sort of FM pad that you hear. We've just got 3 sine waves. You can see I've got them detuned slightly, and the second one is up an octave. They're going into a bandpass filter, and then the bandpass has an LFO on it, so it's just being moved slightly and giving it that motion that you hear. Then we have that going into a little bit of chorus just to kind of spread the sound out and make it a bit bigger. We also have this delay, giving it some space. You can see I have this on the ping pong mode, so it's also helping with the stereo width because it spreads it out. That's what ping pong delay is. And then I have some reverb. So this one is just super spacey, super reverbed. And that's exactly what you want for a sound like this. The next sound that we have here is the main pad, which is 2 layers, and it sounds like this. So here are the notes on this one. I'll show you with this synth. It's really not as complicated as it looks. It's basically just an F minor chord, and then a C minor, and it's just voiced in kind of a weird way. Like you can see, for example, here. So here's the root note of the first chord. We have F. There it is. And you can see the root note of the second chord, which is C. Those are both there. So those are the root notes. But then below those, we have like these voices, and then on top of it we have like another F, another, and then a C, and a C sharp, and then here it goes down to like, we've got the G sharp there. So yeah, just kind of like basically playing with the F minor and the C minor chord. It's not that complicated. Like, to break it down on the most simple level, it's literally just this. That chord, and then that chord. That's essentially what's happening. It's just kind of expanded out and playing around with different voices inside of these scales and these chords. For the sound on the first layer here, you can see it's this choir sample. I've got this looped, and then I've got the fade up. So the fade makes it so it just smoothly loops the whole way through. And I'll show you the original sample as well. So yeah, just like a standard sort of choir that you hear. I like layering this with synths. It's a nice way to make the synths feel more interesting. Then we have that going into a low pass filter, which you can hear is slowly moving with that LFO. And then that's going into a chorus, just kind of spreading it out a bit. Then we got some reverb to give it some space. I've got a bit of drum bus to fatten this up. This really helps to bring it out and not have it get lost in the reverb. And then the last thing we have on there is just an auto filter cutting out the low end. Then on the second layer, it sounds like this on its own. This is meant to be more of like that trance influence kind of pad like you hear in a lot of these tracks. So with this one, we've just got 1 saw wave going into a bandpass filter. Bandpass filter has a little bit of an LFO on it. We got the amp envelope set like that. Then I have a bit of vibrato to kind of give it some more of that like warble, as well as some unison. So that's what gives this like the big sound, because it's only 1 oscillator. So if I turn this off, it sounds like 1 oscillator. When we turn it on, gives you that big trancey sound while still being focused. This is why I use 1 oscillator, because you can hear, if I turn on the second one, we'll put it at the same octave, it's pretty much the same sound as you were getting with the first one. It's just a little bit more messy. So yeah, that's the purpose of that. Then we just have a bit of chorus, kind of spreading the sound out a bit more. As you can see, the chorus is very important with these sounds. It's not just for spreading it out in terms of stereo width, because obviously this is techno. It still needs to work in mono because club systems are in mono. But the chorus makes it sound bigger. Like even if I make this mono at the end of the chain, you can hear. So here is without the chorus, and then with it. Like you can hear, it just makes it that much bigger and that much more full sounding, even in mono. After that, we have a bit of reverb, giving it some more space, making it sound more like a pad. And then we got some drum bus, which helps just kind of make it a bit bigger. It's like I said with that choir sample, when you have a pad like this, some kind of saturation can really help to bring out the notes and kind of keep it from getting lost in the reverb. And then the last thing we have on there is just an auto filter cutting out the low end. I have all of those pads in a group called pads, pretty fitting name there. You can see with this one, it's pretty simple. We just have a little bit of reverb to kind of give everything some more atmosphere all together. Then we have a saturator. This is just tying it all together. You can hear when I turn that on and off. And then we just have a compressor side chaining it to the kick. I have this on the pre-effect setting, so it's not side chaining it to the rumble. And then we just have an EQ8 cutting out the low end. That is it for the pads. The next sound that we have here is this bell, which sounds like this. So here are the notes on this one. You can see it's just playing this little C, jumping up to F thing there. So it's basically F, and then the fifth of F, which is C. And this just kind of like, even though we're in F minor, you can hear by playing that C there versus like if I have it play in F. You can hear the C kind of fits in a little bit more of an interesting way with the pads. And then also here, it just goes down to, that's when it goes down to F. So yeah, and then for the sound on this one, it's made using operator. All this is just a square wave going into a low pass filter. And then I have it going into some chorus. Then we have an erosion. So that's what makes it sound like a bell. Here's without that. And then with it. You can hear the erosion does something cool. It's not even like sounding like the strongest sort of bit crushing sound in the most classical sense of what you would think bit crushing sounds like. But you can hear this gives it a texture where it kind of shifts over the different notes. Like when we hear those higher notes, you can hear it's kind of like struggling. Like that. You're not like, it just kind of gives it a more interesting texture. It makes it feel more alive because it's changing over the different notes as opposed to just like the same pluck the whole way through. After that, we have this echo. This is really fast, you can see. It's saying that little to the sound. Then we have some reverb to give it a little bit more space. And then I have this drum bus. This drum bus really helps when you have kind of a more percussive sound like this, because it takes it from sounding just like a dry synth into sounding more like, yeah, you can hear the difference there when I turn it off, into sounding more like some actual percussion or more like a sound and less just like a dry synth. And then the last thing I have on there is just an auto filter cutting out the low end, and that is it for the bell. The next sound we have here is the 303, which sounds like this. This is a pretty standard sort of 303 pattern. You can see it's actually just all playing on one note. It's just playing F, because we got F there, F an octave up, and then F an octave up from that. So it's pretty simple. With this one, because there's a lot going on with the pads, I wanted to just keep it to one note, so we can still get that nice driving 303 pattern, but without it clashing with the pads. Like if we have this playing a bunch of different notes, even if they're in the same key as the pads, it's gonna be too much for your brain. It's like information overload, you know? If you're gonna have a lot of stuff happening, like this is already pretty full. You need to make sure every individual layer is just doing one thing as opposed to, you know, trying to jump around and do a bunch of stuff. So for the sound on this one, it's made using operator. This is just a saw wave with a very slight FM from the sine wave here. If I turn off the filter, there's the saw wave, and there's with the FM. So it's very, very subtle. But then I have those going into a low pass filter. There you go. That's a 303 sound. You can see we got a pretty high resonance. Frequency is about there. And then I have this LFO on the frequency of the filter. So this is kind of like I'm saying throughout this. It's like you want to give everything some movement. I make it not just sit in the same place. So that's the purpose of that. It's just slowly moving the filter throughout the track so it has some movement. After that, we have this amp. Here's without this. I'm with it. So you can hear that's what takes it from, this is kind of like what I was saying with that drum bus on the bell. Takes it from sounding just like a dry synth. It makes it sound like a 303. You know, it gives it that kind of more modern 303 sort of texture where it's very squelchy and very fat sounding. But it's still going to fit, you know, like with the kick well. And into the mix of the track. After that, we have a bit of echo. This just gives it a bit of space. You don't want your 303 to just be dry. You definitely need to give it at least something like this to kind of bring it to life. And then after that, I have a bit of drum bus. Here's without that. And with it, you can hear. Makes it a lot more fat and full sounding. And then the last thing we have on here is this EQ8. This is just cutting out the low end you can hear. Definitely important with this sound. And then we also have this low mid-range cut to cut out some mud. And that is it for the 303. The next thing we have is the kick, which sounds like this. So with this one, we have this kick sample. I'll play the original sample. It's just like a punchy 909 style kick. And then I've got a pitch envelope on that, so here's without that. And then with it, this is a technique I actually haven't used in a minute on this channel, but it's a very good one for stuff like this, where basically what this is doing is it's just adding more punch to the kick. The pitch envelope is starting the pitch up here and then dropping down to the original pitch of the sample. And what happens is, when you make this very fast, like if you give it a really short decay like that, you can hear it just gives your kick that much more attack. Because we're getting like that click at the start of the sound. After that, I just have a bit of a saturator. Here's without that. And with it, you can hear it just makes it hit a little bit harder going into the rumble. After that, we have the rumble. So this is just an audio effect track. You can see I have a dry chain where I have just the punch of the kick. I've got a saturator on that. Here's without it. With it, you can hear it helps with the punch. Then we have the rumble chain. So with this one, it's just some reverb. Typically with this more like dreamy style of techno, or the style where it's like more kind of, I almost want to say like progressive like this, and it has like, basically it has melodic stuff in it. I tend to like the reverb because it's a little bit smoother. You get like that nice just deep rumble as opposed to like like that's better for like harder tracks. After the reverb, we have this amp. So if I turn off the auto filter, you can hear what that's doing. That takes it from just like some reverb to more of a rumbly sound. Then we have this low pass filter, which cuts out the high end. There you go. And then I have this auto pan, which is just doing like this thing, making it kind of bounce up off of the off of the punch. You can hear when I turn that off, it's a lot more messy. This cleans it up and makes it more focused. And then we just have this EQ8, which is boosting the low end and cutting 100 hertz to make room for the kick. And that is it for the rumble. So then after that, I have a bit of EQ8. I have two actually. I'll show you. Here's without these. And with them. So you can hear it's just one of those things where like when you're using this much saturation and distortion to fatten your kick up, you're going to have to use some EQ like this. Like this is the key. It's using saturation and then using EQ to clean the saturation up and focus it and make it what you want. Because you're going to get a very powerful sound if you know how to use the saturation. But if you just use that alone, like if we take all the EQ out of the sound, listen to how it sounds. It's not going to sound too good. It's a lot more messy compared to this. So yeah, it's just a matter of like getting what you want from the saturation and then using these EQs to clean it up. You can see I've got a low mid-range cut on both of these, got a low end boost there, and I've got a mid-range boost on both of these as well, just kind of like making the punch come out a little bit. I've also got this drum bus here. Here's without that. And with it, so you can hear that also really takes it and gives it that full professional fatness. The transients here is very important. If I turn this off, you can hear that gives it that last little bit of punch that like when I was putting this up against reference tracks, you really need that to get it like that full professional sound. And yeah, that is it for the kick. So then the last thing that we have here is the hi-hats, which altogether sound like this. And so what we've got is we have like these hi-hats, just this hi-hat, married with a shaker for some mid-range. I've got those in a group being drum bussed together and EQ'd a little bit. Then we have this one. We're just playing constant 16 notes. You know, makes it a bit more driving. And then we also have this layer. And so this is something I noticed in KAS tracks as well as a lot of techno. It's a really nice way to kind of bring your drums to life. If you listen to the whole mix, here's what it sounds like without this. And then with it. It gives like some nice atmosphere to your drums. And so the way that I made this was actually I had this reverb on the main hi-hat. This one, which is turned off right now. I'll turn it on, you can hear. It's doing a very similar thing where if I play this with the metronome, basically it's creating, I have this pre-delay up and it's creating this reverb where it like plays on the corner notes, like kind of like that. So basically what I did was I just took that and I recorded it onto its own thing. So we had this. And then I just put it through some effects. So we got a bit of chorus, some drum bass, and then I side chain it to the kick. You can see I've got that on the pre-effects setting. That's what's really making it like fit into the track and not just be over top of everything, but kind of like coming up off that kick. And then the last thing we have on there is just a high pass filter. So yeah, this is definitely a good example of like using effects and stuff to kind of make your track more interesting, because like adding something like this, again, it just adds so much to the overall atmosphere of the track. It really feels like it's putting it in like that particular kind of space like you want. And then I have all those in a group. I've just got a bit of processing on there. You can see we've got a drum bus. Here's without it. And with it, brings everything out. And then we have this EQ8, which is just doing a little bit of a high-end boost. You can see we didn't really need to cut out any line with these sounds. And that is it for the hi-hats. And that is also going to be it for this video, guys. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all the stuff that I just showed you in this video in the description for just $5. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it is available now. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.